Good evening. This evening, we're going to start a short series that I think will be of interest to everybody. A little history, a little Bible, a little bit of just some thrill at knowing who we are and where we came from. It's no accident that we sit today in an independent Baptist church in a country that has a constitution and a Bill of Rights. Those things were purchased at a great price long before there were world wars. The price was severe. And I just want to say thanks for tuning in for a few minutes this evening. I am sitting here with my laptop, some notes, my Bible. I've got my Diet Pepsi. I've got my hand sanitizer to keep me safe in California. I've even got a Corona confusion track. And we made this up just not that we're out knocking on doors or meeting people, but when we do happen to meet people, we've got a track that deals with the issues of the day. I've even got my offering envelope here because since we're not coming to church, we are still giving, and we just got to think of another way to get these in. And so I want to encourage you that are members of our church and whatever church you attend, let's be faithful to support our church in these difficult days. You ought to pray for your country, for your leaders, of course, your state and state leaders. We can pray for the czar who leads California and Sacramento, boss and everything around. But let me encourage you to be faithful to your giving. Here at Faith Baptist, you could give online. You could bring in something by the office and slip it under the door, and we'll figure out a way to make things right as far as giving go. But if you need something, please let us know. If you have a problem getting offerings, that we're Baptists, we'll send a staff member by to pick it up if that would be a help. But I did mention to our some of our seniors, some of you that are not comfortable going out right now, your lungs or maybe your whatever your health makes you a little vulnerable. Probably good to stay in. But if we could be a help, I told one of our folks, I said, let me go fill your car up with gas for you. And look after the seniors and those whose health makes them a little more vulnerable. Some who've just gone over chemotherapy, they're a little more susceptible. Their immunities are down. And let's be good to people. But with all that being said, this evening, we're just going to talk about the steps to freedom. How did we get freedom in America? And we're going to look at some Bible, of course, along the way. But how did we get here? How did we gain this incredible liberty that we enjoy? And in honesty, any freedom the rest of the world has, it all came from America, and from where we got it, of course, is from God. God is the author of freedom. One of the great things about the Lord Jesus Christ is he offered his life willingly, but he didn't force himself on us. And when God left Adam and Eve in the garden, there was a tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and they could eat from the forbidden fruit or not. It was their choice. We're free agents, and God's not forcing his people to follow him. There's no heads being chopped off if you're not a Christian. That's not how God works. And what a wonderful thing to see the liberty that comes. Anything that God begins, it's something of liberty. And Christian salvation is a matter of liberty. And all the leadership and fellowship in the Bible, all the instructions are always to the follower. It's their choice to follow the leader. What a wonderful thing. But as far as America and the steps to freedom, when we start thinking about freedom, where did it all begin? The Bible says in the Gospel of John, if you continue in my word, then are you my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. And when you read through the book of Acts, you'll see, and we'll look at some verses here, but in the book of Acts, we find over and over and over, the apostles went and preached in a new city, went to another new city. Now, not only did they not force anybody to follow them, but when they were ran out of town, they left. Well, in one case, Paul was left for dead at Lystra, and he went back in and preached some more. But the preaching was an invitation to come. It wasn't compulsory. And one of the great differences between Bible Christianity and the rest of the world religions, especially Catholicism and the Reformed churches, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Methodist, Episcopalian, Congregationalist, the Church of England, Anglican, they are at least in their roots. Now today, it's a whole different story today, but in our roots, the Protestant churches were very compulsory. You went or you were in big trouble. In fact, just a few notes here about this. In 1610, going to the pre-colonial days, 1610 in Jamestown, if you missed church, you were whipped in the Anglican Church. 1638 in Massachusetts, if you were to speak against baby baptism, you were banished. 1655 in Virginia, everybody in Virginia had to pay a tax to support the preacher and his estate. He didn't just have a little parsonage next to the church. He had an estate. He had a plantation. And in 1655, if you didn't give to that, you were in troubles. But here you're a Bible-believing Baptist, and you had to give to support the Anglican Church and to support the Anglican pastor. And what did you have left to support your pastor? In 1661, you were forbidden to read, in America, you were forbidden to read any religious book except the Common Book of Prayers. And so you couldn't sit down with your neighbors and read the Bible. You couldn't go witnessing to people. Of course, Baptists got in all kinds of trouble. I've got a whole book at home, Jailed Virginia Preachers, or Jailed Baptist Virginia Preachers. I forget the name of the title. But this was a problem. This was a major issue. And of course, it was a great heartbreak to the people of God. They just wanted freedom. Many of these folks, when they came to America, they just wanted a chance. And it wasn't coming their way. Now, we're going to start with several people and circumstances. Let me just talk about that. We're getting the steps to freedom. How did we get this freedom that we enjoy in America? Now, the first, if you'd like details on all this, this is compiled. I didn't obviously know any of this. I wasn't around in 1600. But a good dear friend of mine who's up in heaven now, James Beller. Brother Beller, what an incredible man. And I can't believe God took him to heaven so young, in his early 50s. But Jim Beller wrote a book, America in Crimson Red. Much, much more detailed than anything I'm going to talk about. This is an incredible story of America and the Baptist history in America. And those books are available online, and his wife is having them, continue to have them published. What a great lady she is, and good kids. But America in Crimson Red, I'm giving you just a real brush overview from Brother Beller and others that I've learned from. There's a lot of history that's not made public in our history books and things. But we're going to start with somebody in prison. 1611, we know the King James Bible was being brought into the English language. And most of us are aware that the story of Pilgrim's Progress, in that same era, while our King James Bible is being written, John Bunyan's sitting in Bedford jail in great trouble, and he's facing all kinds of difficulties. He wouldn't take a license, and he'd gotten saved later in life, and boy, when he got saved, he got the whole dose of it. And so when John Bunyan wrote Pilgrim's Progress, and by the time he was out of jail, it was translated in other languages, and he became a very famous preacher. But it's all over license. It was over freedom. Well, in that same era of time, there were people called Dissenters. And these Dissenters, they just wanted the right to go to church on their own. They just wanted to have their own church. And they didn't want to be a part of the Church of England or the Anglican Church. They didn't believe in baby baptism. They didn't believe in all the liturgy and all the things that came over from the Catholic Church. When the Church in England was formed, there was a problem with the Pope and in Rome and the king in England. And when the Pope wouldn't let the king have his way regarding divorce, remarriage, different things, he just said, we're not going to be Catholics anymore. We're going to be the Church of England, start his own religion. And so we have this a very Catholic religion called the Church of England, or Anglican. But then we got some Baptists and other Bible believers, and they ended up being called Dissenters. Well, sitting in one of those jails, there is a man, 1620, sitting in jail who wrote a note trying to get into Parliament, trying to get some help. And he wrote what has been known as the Dissenters' plea. You can Google it today, and you can find actual photocopies. And he wrote many of them, but he kept writing and writing and writing. But the Dissenters' plea was basically, I'm in jail. I'd like to go home. I'd like to be with my wife and children. I'd like to worship. Could I just have the right to worship God according to my conscience, not your conscience? And somehow one of those letters got into Parliament, got read into Parliament, and then it was in the papers there in London. And a guy named Roger Williams saw that and read it, and it got into his heart and his mind, and he was on his way to America as an Anglican minister. And, we're talking 1620, and the colonies were just not even really being put together yet. And there was, of course, no independence. They were all just English colonies being settled. And Roger Williams, he reads this plea for freedom. Can I just believe what I believe? And no one knows who this guy or many of those guys were who were in jail, but this one letter got through, and it got to the paper. It got to Roger Williams, and Roger Williams, he comes along about 1630, and he came to America. And some of you who are in ministry work might click this little phrase. He came as a teaching elder. It's the only place I can find that phrase used, and somehow it's being resurrected in some of our Baptist circles. And it's not a Baptist term. It's a Protestant term, and it's not even used very much in Protestant circles. But he came over as a teaching elder, and by the time he got to America, he was pretty convinced that this thing of compulsory religion was not right. And he got to America, and there was a problem, because he stepped into the pulpit and he began teaching against infant baptism, that people had freedom of conscience. And that right in that era is when that term freedom of conscience began to be brought up. And what a powerful, powerful thing that became. And of course, America, for years, that was our freedom, our right. We had a right to freely think and believe. And we had our First Amendment, the right to speak what we think, the right to worship the way we want to worship, the right to peaceably assemble in protest or in churches. Of course, in California, you don't have that right to peaceably assemble right now. But and I'm not happy about it. But Roger Williams, he's in that era, and he began promoting this. And well, they're ready to send him back to England. He's a reject, send him back to get retrained. And Roger Williams takes off, and he develops a relationship with some Indians, and some great things happen in the days to come. Now, you tune in again tomorrow. You'll get some more of this. But the fact is, what freedom goes on in Australia or Germany today, it all comes back ultimately to somebody sitting in the prison there in England, the Dissenters' plea, when the cry went out. And we'll show you how this thing, like an atomic bomb, began to explode, and freedom was born. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow.